Hey everyone, so we all know the feeling. You want to do something to win the game before your teammates can int their lanes, but you've looked for ganks and it just looks like there's nothing that you can do but sit back, farm, and wait, hoping everything somehow works out and you'll get a chance soon. Well, today we're going to be turning that mindset on its head. One of our challengers and jungle experts, Japanese Import, is going to be taking on the most ludicrous challenge we've done yet. Instead of giving him the option of farming his camps when things go wrong, or when there's not much to do, we're not going to allow him to farm at all. You heard that right, not a single jungle camp on our side of the map is going to be taken by him. As an additional challenge, he only gets one chance, so if he fails, he can't get a redo and he definitely can't troll his teammates by trying again. And while this guide is going to be focused on jungle gameplay, a lot of the concepts and mindsets will be applicable to every role, so make sure you stick around, especially if you want to see if he can pull this off. As a jungler, this sounds absolutely impossible, right? And why are we even doing it? Well, let's let him answer that.
The reason for this is that people usually spend too much time farming their camps and don't realize how many opportunities they're actually missing, so we're going to try and show that.
Too often, players get in the mindset that there's nothing they could be doing besides their camps. They end up over farming and miss out on their limited chances to really snowball the game. What this challenge is going to prove is that there really are a lot more chances to win a game than you might think, and that by going into a game with a solid game plan and knowing what to look for, you can win even without the ability to farm. You'll also see what it looks like for someone that literally doesn't have a choice but to force plays, and how they can make that work without inting the whole game. Anyway, something like this is not going to be easy, and we know what you're thinking. Couldn't you just farm lane minions and then it wouldn't really matter? Well, not really. Riot put in anti-funneling mechanics so you get reduced XP and gold if more than half of your farm comes from lane minions. So yes, we really need to find an alternative to just laning instead. So before being thrown into gold elo, Japanese Import came up with a very specific plan for this game. It began in Champion Select. With this challenge, the only way that you can really get resources is by invading, skirmishing, ganking, and diving. We needed someone who was exceptionally strong and could be able to do all those things no matter what. A few options stuck out initially like Udyr, Elise, and Rek'Sai, but those all had at least one key weakness out of the list that we mentioned before, and without the ability to farm camps, weaknesses just really weren't going to be okay if we wanted to win. So he settled on Graves, for the reasons that we stated before, but also because he's probably one of the best junglers at level 1. Level 1 is going to be the most important time in this game. Without either starting at the enemy buff or contesting a camp, it would be nearly impossible to impact the game since he'd be stuck without a way of getting XP. Because of this, it was absolutely imperative that he invaded. There are two scenarios that could happen here. One is that Kha'Zix starts blue and we take his red, either forcing the map to be split or giving us the combat advantages when we inevitably have to deal with him. The second and most ideal circumstance is that Kha'Zix tries to start red and we force him off, secure the buff, and counter jungle then. So in the game, you can see that JP was pinging and typing to try to get this invade to happen right from the start. Going in and getting a kill as well as pushing Kha'Zix off the camp was a result of both good planning and a small amount of luck that his team was willing to go along with it. The second part of his plan involves contesting Kha'Zix at every possible point. In our How to Beat Challengers series, we showed you how a lot of junglers throw massive leads by not contesting the enemy once they're ahead, and instead, they allow them to trade objectives around the map and lose their advantage that way. JP knows this, and the stakes are even higher here. For example, if he chooses to gank bot and Kha'Zix ganks top, he risks losing out on his jungle and the enemy jungle as well. On bot side, however, he would only be able to take the enemy jungle and would be locked out of his own, letting Kha'Zix get twice as much as him in that scenario. In general though, it's important that once you get a lead, like we did through the invade, that you constantly push it to snowball the game. Even when you can take your own camps, it's still not ideal to do so if you can take the enemies instead. Right after taking away the Raptors, he's about to use a really important concept to help push his lead. Ganking for pressure and freeing up a lane to move can help you out in the long run. By using time and resources to cross through mid and chunk Trist, he's able to more confidently invade as Pantheon now has the ability to move, and Trist is too low HP to really affect the play. He walks in super confidently and begins taking away the enemy Gromp. Seeing both blue and Gromp up means that Kha'Zix had to have done his wolves during this time, and now is probably too scared to contest due to a combination of red buff, Trisk being really low, and Pantheon beginning to move into the jungle. From this point, Kha'Zix can't really fight him here, so he pretty much has no option but to reset and go to Krugs if he wants camps, since we've taken away pretty much everything else. From this situation, imagining that you could farm your own camps, what would you look to do next? So this is where players tend to tunnel on their camps. We mentioned it specifically because it changes nothing about what you should be looking to do here. If we do something like taking top crab and then going to clear our top side, then Kha'Zix has a chance to clear bottom crab and take our bot side. Essentially, just trading camps and going even. From ahead, this is a terrible thing to do. Because of this, JP wants to do one of three things here. Either continue to make aggressive plays on top side, either by looking for a dive, or if that's not possible, going to contest the Kha'Zix on bottom crab to make sure that we can stay ahead. If mid gank is possible on the way, then that also works as well. The concept that this challenge so beautifully illustrates is that sometimes you can do more things to put yourself ahead, and defaulting back to camps is a trap in most situations. Obviously, there are going to be times where you should farm when other plays look impossible, but we need to check for those plays before we go back to our jungle. JP even called this out 20 seconds ago because he knew that there would be very few options to pick from, and the result is a successful dive that denies Urgot the wave and forces his teleport. After this, the only real option is to take crab, and then what? Let's just let him answer that.
Well, this is probably on my bot side, but that's pretty much the best I'm gonna be able to get is just trading stuff. So I'm gonna have to reset here for tempo and try and use that pretty aggressively to invade on his camps again on bot side.
So there are two things to unpack here. What is tempo and why bot side? Tempo is essentially just control of the game. If JP doesn't recall, the next time that he wants to invade on camps, for example onto the Raptors right now, it will be much harder due to a lack of items. A very common mistake for junglers is to make a successful gank and then go full clear their jungle. Sometimes you're better off recalling and looking to punish somewhere else on the map, getting to that place faster instead of using your time to farm and delay your impact on the map can be extremely important, and it's often overlooked. As for why bot side, he's thinking that because Urgot teleported back and Lucian is walking, that Urgot would be able to crash the incoming wave, and then he wouldn't have a gank or invade available on top side. In hindsight, Urgot didn't end up pushing this wave, but it was most likely correct for him to do so. Going top could have been a viable play, knowing what we know 20 seconds into the future, but of course in League, you have to take a calculated gamble. You have no idea how the enemy will play situations, so you just have to try to pick the highest probability play with what you know. He invades to check on the respawning Raptors, hoping to find Kha'Zix, but just ends up warding for intel and pressuring mid in order to soak some XP and give Pantheon some pressure by blowing Tristana's jump. He notices that top is fighting and runs straight to it. While he doesn't even get an assist, he does get valuable experience from being nearby and from helping to push the wave. Why else was it so important that he goes top here? Because we invaded on the Raptors earlier and haven't seen Kha'Zix cross through the ward yet, we can assume that he's most likely doing his topside camps, or he's in our jungle somewhere. In all situations, Lucian is extremely vulnerable here, so it's important that we just stick around to make sure that he doesn't die. After pushing the wave, taking the enemy Gromp, and finding that the wolves had been taken already, he now wants to go back to one of our missions from earlier on. He wants to play into the Kha'Zix to contest him for everything. Seeing him on the map, he paths straight into him on vision and takes away the crab, knowing that in the worst case scenario, Pantheon still has ult available to force the fight, and if Kha'Zix gives it up, he's still winning. From here, what do you think he should do right now if he could farm his camps? So in this kind of a scenario, he doesn't have bot prio or mid prio, so invading is kind of out of the question. This is one of those times where we check to see if we can invade or gank, but it really looks unlikely here. Unfortunately for this brave hero, he doesn't have much of a choice, so he's going to have to try to find a way to make this work.
It's pretty much a bluff. I shouldn't actually be allowed to get away with this, but...
He knew full well that this play was extremely risky. He probably could have gotten out had Pantheon not W'd in over the wall, but this is a perfect example of why pressuring on the right timers is important. Fortunately, the enemy team overcommits, and it ends up being positive for him overall. However, the mental battle that he's currently fighting may have us wondering if he's truly okay.
Feels really weird walking by all my camps. Like, really, really weird.
From here, he is more than happy to catch top wave and afterwards rotate to mid to catch more XP while Pantheon roams. We want to point out that this is absolutely still the correct play even if he could farm camps right now. Making sure that the enemy can't just deny huge amounts of farm to towers and take plates is part of your job as a jungler. When teammates die or they look to roam, sometimes you just become a laner for a bit and that's totally fine. Unfortunately, the Monster Hunter debuff is in full effect, and even though he gets these waves, it can't be the only source of XP and gold that he gets. So, just like before, it's back to scavenging for plays. Looking mid and knowing that Trist is about half HP, he's looking for a dive. This kind of play might be really hard to see and relatively risky, but when it's all you're allowed to do, you're going to try it anyway. Fortunately, we get a relatively clean kill here, and it's these kinds of punishes that really set the enemy super far behind. While in your own games you obviously aren't forced to play this way, we can't overstate how valuable it can be to put yourself in the mindset of someone who literally can't farm their camps. You'll definitely find that you'll be able to see plays that you've just been ignoring before. Because of good decision making and the leads he's accrued early on, he's still at least even in level with the enemy ADC and is able to invade, skirmish, and take objectives with the best of them. But his job is still really hard, so we're going to let him do the talking for this part to give a bit more insight into what he's looking to do from here.
Like, normally here's where you'd go farm your camps, right? But it's a little unfortunate. I need him to teleport. Thank you, sir.
Having the foresight to call for plays from your teammates ahead of time gives you a chance to switch up your actions if they don't follow through with what you want. If he had pinged the teleport and Lucian didn't channel it, then he would just have to play a different way, but by preempting it, you have a much better chance that your team will go along with you. And while he really wants to do blue and Gromp here, he's more than willing to ditch for top dive since the timer for that is much more pressing. Identifying when windows of opportunity will open or close is key for making sure that you aren't wasting time on camps when you could be doing things like this. Obviously, once the laning phase is over, he's more than happy to join in on all the random fights that his teammates are going to call for. But because he's gotten such a huge lead for his lanes early on, everything just goes really smoothly in a game that should have been incredibly difficult. Even though he has way fewer items and is a much lower level than he should be, impacting the early game well will pretty much make most games a casual walk in the park once it gets later on in, even if you do in teamfights just trying to frontline for your super fed carries like he did here. Missing out on proactive plays is by far the #1 mistake that most players make, and it's unfortunate that it happens to be one of the hardest to notice yourself doing because it's not really what you're doing, but what you're not doing instead. Hopefully this has shed some light on some ideas that you can use in your own games and made it more clear that sometimes you need to play high risk, high reward to really learn your limits. Anyway, that's going to bring us to the end of this video. By the way, you should know where these videos come from. Our hyper improvement platform, SkillCapped, is by far the best place to be if you want to actually improve at League of Legends. You can input your rank before signing up to see where we think you'll climb to. If you don't reach that rank while actively using SkillCapped, you can claim a full refund. That's like a gym membership guaranteeing that you'll get ripped. We offer this because our service really does work, and if it doesn't, then you shouldn't pay for it. So be sure to check us out after this. If you have more challenge ideas for our experts, definitely leave them in the comments below. Until next time, definitely don't do this in solo queue, and we'll see you shortly.